The West Bank is aflame. The air is thick with smoke, and the ground trembles with the echoes of explosions. The conflict here is not just a headline, it is a harsh reality for those living through it. Israeli forces have launched a massive military operation, the largest in decades. This operation is unprecedented in its scale and intensity, marking a significant escalation in the ongoing conflict.
This operation has brought death and destruction to Palestinian cities like Jenin, where homes have been reduced to rubble and families torn apart, Tulkarem and Tubas. These cities, once bustling with life, now stand as grim reminders of the cost of conflict. The Israeli military claims it is targeting Palestinian fighters, aiming to dismantle militant networks and prevent future attacks. Part of their ongoing counter-terrorism efforts, these actions are framed as necessary for national security.
Yet the scale of the operation, the blockades, and the restrictions on medical access tell a different story. They paint a picture of a population under siege, struggling to survive amidst the chaos. The humanitarian impact is severe, with medical aid often blocked and hospitals struggling to cope with the influx of casualties. This latest incursion is not an isolated incident. It is part of a broader pattern of military actions that have been escalating over the past months.
It is part of a pattern of escalating raids that began in October. Each raid brings with it a new wave of fear and uncertainty for the residents of the West Bank. These raids, often justified on security grounds, are seen by many as a means of maintaining control over the West Bank. The checkpoints and patrols are a constant reminder of the military presence. The surveillance and control measures are pervasive, affecting every aspect of daily life for Palestinians.
They are met with fear and anger by Palestinians, who see them as further acts of aggression in a long and painful conflict. The emotional toll is immense, with communities living in a state of constant tension. Protests erupt frequently, with demonstrators expressing their frustration and despair. These protests are often met with force, leading to further violence and casualties. The human cost of this latest operation is already staggering. Lives have been lost, and countless others have been irreversibly changed.
Palestinian health officials report numerous casualties. The hospitals are overwhelmed, with medical staff working tirelessly to save lives. They also highlight the difficulties in accessing hospitals, with ambulances often delayed or blocked at checkpoints. The damage inflicted upon vital infrastructure is extensive, further complicating the delivery of essential services.
This operation, like those before it, deepens the cycle of violence. Each act of aggression fuels the next, creating a seemingly endless loop of retaliation and suffering, and pushes the hope for peace further out of reach. Amidst the chaos, there are voices calling for peace, but they are often drowned out by the sounds of conflict. To understand the present, we must journey back to the past. The story of the Israel-Palestine conflict is not just a tale of modern political strife, but a saga deeply rooted in the annals of history. The roots of the Israel-Palestine conflict run deep, entwined with the complexities of history and the echoes of broken promises. It is a narrative shaped by colonial ambitions, national aspirations, and the enduring quest for identity and homeland.
A pivotal moment in this narrative arrived in 1917 with the Balfour Declaration. This declaration was not just a statement, it was a promise that would alter the course of history. This seemingly innocuous document, a mere 67 words, carried with it the weight of nations. It was a brief letter from the British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour to Lord Rothschild, a leader of the British Jewish community, expressing support for a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine.
In it, the British government pledged their support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. This pledge was seen as a beacon of hope for the Jewish diaspora, who had long faced persecution and displacement. What seemed like a beacon of hope for one people ignited the flames of despair in another. The Arab population in Palestine, who had been living there for centuries, saw this as a threat to their own national aspirations and way of life.
The Balfour Declaration, coupled with the subsequent British Mandate for Palestine from 1920 to 1948, set the stage for the conflict we see today. The British Mandate was intended to prepare the region for self-governance, but it instead became a period of increasing tension and violence. It sowed the seeds of discord, fueling tensions between the existing Arab population and the influx of Jewish immigrants. The British policies during this time were often contradictory, attempting to placate both sides but ultimately satisfying neither.
The British, caught between their conflicting promises to both Jews and Arabs, found themselves in an increasingly untenable position. Their attempts to maintain order were met with resistance from both communities, and the realities on the ground struggled to maintain order. The British military presence in Palestine grew, but so did the unrest and violence. Their policies, often seen as favoring Jewish interests, further exacerbated the situation. The Jewish community, buoyed by international support and immigration, began to establish settlements, while the Arab population felt increasingly marginalized and dispossessed. The legacy of the Balfour Declaration and the British Mandate is a complex tapestry of hope, betrayal, and conflict. It is a story that continues to shape the lives of millions and the geopolitics of the region to this day. In the crucible of this conflict, amidst the escalating violence and the failure of diplomacy, a new force emerged, Hamas. This organization, which would become a significant player in the region, began to shape the course of events in ways that few could have predicted.
Founded in 1987, during the First Intifada, Hamas began as a social welfare organization. It focused on providing essential services to the Palestinian people, who were suffering under the harsh realities of occupation. It provided much-needed services to Palestinians living under Israeli occupation, including food, medical care, and education, filling the void left by a struggling Palestinian Authority. The PA, beset by its own challenges, was unable to meet the needs of the people, and Hamas stepped in to fill that gap.
However, Hamas's ideology, rooted in Islamic principles and a staunch opposition to Israel's existence, soon led it down a different path. The group's popularity grew, not just because of its social services, but also due to its firm stance against Israel. Fueled by frustration with the peace process, which many Palestinians saw as ineffective and biased, and the perceived failures of the Palestinian Authority, the PA's inability to secure a lasting peace or improve living conditions further eroded its support.
As the Second Intifada erupted in 2000, Hamas transformed. The uprising against Israeli occupation marked a turning point for the organization. No longer content with providing social services, Hamas took up arms. It began to engage in violent resistance, seeing this as the only way to achieve its goals. It launched a series of suicide bombings and rocket attacks against Israeli targets, actions that were both controversial and deadly. Actions that drew international condemnation. The global community reacted strongly, with many countries denouncing the violence, and cemented its designation as a terrorist organization by many nations. This label had significant implications for Hamas's operations and its international relations.
Hamas's emergence as a militant force added a dangerous new dimension to the conflict. The group's military capabilities and willingness to use violence changed the dynamics on the ground, added a dangerous new dimension to the conflict, further escalating tensions and leading to more violence and suffering on both sides, further complicating the path to peace. The presence of an armed and ideologically driven group like Hamas made negotiations even more challenging, as both sides struggled to find common ground.
The Israel-Palestine conflict is characterized by a stark asymmetry in military capabilities. Israel, with its advanced technology and robust defense industry, possesses a formidable arsenal. Their weapon systems, many supplied or funded by the United States, are amongst the most sophisticated in the world.
From F-16 fighter jets to Merkava tanks, from precision-guided missiles to Iron Dome defense systems, Israel has the capability to project force and defend its territory with overwhelming might.
On the other hand, Palestinian armed groups, including Hamas, operate with far fewer resources. Their arsenal is largely composed of small arms, improvised explosive devices or IEDs, and rockets. These rockets, often rudimentary in design, are primarily used to sow fear and disrupt daily life in Israel.
While they lack the precision and destructive power of their Israeli counterparts, they serve as a potent symbol of Palestinian resistance.
The land itself bears witness to the enduring conflict. Decades of violence have left an indelible mark, scarring the landscape and shattering the lives of those who call it home.
Israeli settlements, deemed illegal under international law, dot the West Bank, often built on confiscated Palestinian land. These settlements, heavily guarded and expanding, are a constant source of tension and a physical manifestation of the occupation.
On the Palestinian side, Gaza, densely populated and impoverished, has been subjected to repeated Israeli military operations. The impact of these operations, with their aerial bombardments and ground incursions, is devastating. Homes, schools, hospitals, and vital infrastructure lie in ruins.
The Gaza Strip, once a vibrant hub of Palestinian life, now resembles a war-torn wasteland, a testament to the human cost of this intractable conflict.
The conflict's toll is measured not only in shattered concrete and twisted metal, but also in the countless lives lost and forever altered. The United Nations estimates that since 2000, over 10,000 Palestinians and over 1,200 Israelis have been killed in the conflict. These figures, stark and unforgiving, represent mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, all victims of a seemingly endless cycle of violence.
Behind each number lies a story of heartbreak and loss. Palestinian families mourn the deaths of loved ones killed in Israeli airstrikes or during clashes with soldiers. Israeli families grapple with the pain of losing loved ones in suicide bombings or rocket attacks.
The conflict has left an entire generation scarred, haunted by the trauma of violence and the ever-present threat of renewed hostilities.